one, Yopi basically designed this oven, which was an amalgamation of steel and brick and mortar, and it came over here in pieces from Barcelona, 33,000 pounds of material, and then they sent two guys over that built it up in 7 days with us running around as their gophers, bringing them beer and coffee all day long. And we were like, don't you want some water? They said, water is for frogs.
And welcome to Grow Your Grass Off. Today we have special guest Joe Furneaux.
All right, today's guest is Joe Furneaux. He's living in Southern Oregon at Full Bloom, and it's an amazing farm. I used to live there. It's so much that we could get into today, but Joe is an amazing musician. He's a baker. They've got an amazing bakery. They sell bread all over Southern Oregon pretty much. And I can attest that it's really one of the best. It's the best kind of bread. I mean, you just can't go wrong. And then they've got a community that's had so many different waves of people come through there, but it's really a special place. So today's conversation is going to be varied, but we're happy to welcome Joe. Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure. It's great to see you again, and great to meet all your peers and see what you guys are up to and learn a little bit about you as well.
Well, can you give us a quick rundown, Joe, on kind of the latest and greatest from Full Bloom and what you guys have going on and just kind of the broad stroke?
Yeah, the background is that a group of people, well, Rosie and I got married after living for a Zen center in California called Green Gulch Farm for 3 years, where we met our best friend Ryan and Eden, and Ryan invited us to begin what was going to, in his mind, to be a permaculture farm. It didn't end up really being that. I wouldn't say that Full Bloom is a permaculture farm, though it has elements of permaculture built into it. But we jumped on that opportunity. I mean, we didn't have very much money. Rosie had some in her family, and we were able to use that to buy in and to use it for some of the startup costs of what would become Rise Up Artisan Bread, our bakery. But when we said yes, it was basically on a wing and a prayer, and trusting in the relationship that we had built with our good friend Ryan, and on his generosity. I mean, he capitalized more than $1 million campaign to build out the infrastructure. Well, buy the land and build out the infrastructure, while simultaneously establishing a limited liability corporation that we would cooperatively manage. So the decision-making structure is consensus-based. So we spent a lot of time drafting that whole agreement, the operating agreement, based on guidance that we had gotten from Occidental Arts and Ecology Center in California, which is a fantastic organization that has a LLC called Sowing Seeds, and then they have the nonprofit OAEC, and then they used to do starting and sustaining intentional communities workshops. And we went to, I mean, Ryan was on it, sourced that group of people doing great work, and we got a lot of support and guidance from them in establishing this LLC, which we call Earth and Sky LLC, and the land is called Full Bloom, which we found after taking that workshop because we were unable to afford land in California, and Ryan had family in Seattle. We were like, maybe Oregon, and we met some great people and had friends in this valley, the Applegate Valley, and they turned us on to a great realtor, and we met this wonderful community of people and fell in love, not only with the land, but also the people that were around here: radical farmers, anarchists, dairy farmers, goat farmers, organic vegetable farmers, and people that were very involved in the agrarian movement for sustainability and also permaculture, and a lot of back to the landers and environmental activists. So we were bringing our philosophy of Zen and ecology that aligned with permaculture into this valley and fit snugly amidst all these other wonderful people doing amazing things, and found this great 280 acre forested property that's exclusively farm use. And we're maybe imagined farming together at first and realized it would be better to diversify the income streams. So we decided we would start a bread bakery because she had some skills there and I got some skills there. And we launched Rise Up after we got here in 2006. And once everybody else was here, we had a lot of meetings.
So our show is about food production in general, but community is such a big part of it in my view, in terms of how we work together. We've got these essential needs that we need to take care of. Obviously, if there's enough bread to go around, that you guys are okay, but it's what's happening now in terms of decision making, and how does it sort of dovetail in maybe with some of the food stuff that you guys have going on?
Definitely, relationships are the most essential element of the organization, right? We see the organization of this intentional community called Full Bloom as an organism. And so in order to like feed the organism of relationships, we weren't doing it very well in the beginning. I mean, there was so much in terms of infrastructure, decision making, like the logistics and the on the ground like grind, that there was too much friction, and we were a little bit young and naive and hadn't built in elements of relationship building to foster a kind of grease for those relationships, to deal with the friction for bonding purposes, for fun. So like when you lived here, we basically had understood that we need to have actual check-ins, build a ground of health at each meeting, spend 10 or 15 minutes on gratitude or check-ins for each person, making sure there's people are having an opportunity to express how they're doing, where they're at, being heard by other people, to promote more understanding and empathy. We're simultaneously trying to cultivate that empathy in ourselves. There's just a mutual understanding that that's necessary. And we also have like a men's circle that meets once every 2 weeks, where we really do a lot of processing and shadow work to check in with our story and what's the driving element of this kind of ego that Joe Furneaux has, and what's really motivating my actions. And this is all meant to kind of like dissolve that very crystallized ego that wants to like is attached to outcome. So anyway, it's a long and involved way of saying the most important thing is relationship, and there's a lot of energy that goes into taking care of ourselves and taking care of the relationships here, that's ongoing and built into the structures like of our meetings. Whew. Yeah, it's a lot. It's like years of failure, and then learning, and then integrating new methods and trying that out. And I will say that like a lot of people don't fit in, don't feel like this is the place for them, and that's totally fine. There's a mutual respect hopefully at the end of the day, and if people want to go do something else, or they live here for a certain amount of time and they get whatever they get out of it, and that's all great. And the key is that, the hope is that what we're doing is still fostering, while anybody's here, some degree of enlightenment or self-knowledge, self-understanding, self-growth, personal growth, that benefits everybody, actually.
Cool. I just want to have one more comment, but to me, I've been in a lot of different communities, and so it was really fun to see how things operate at Full Bloom because, as we talk about food production and sort of connecting with our local communities, this is kind of the zone zero work that I think is important. If we're looking at it through the permaculture lens, it's the how do we actually function in society? And there's so many topics we could get onto there. It's like never ending. But to me, what are the tools that we have? How do we actually operate? And what do people do when they're going to get triggered? Those kind of things. It's really fascinating stuff. But you've got normally what is it, like 10 to 15 people on site? Is that kind of what it is?
At the beginning of the pandemic, we had 21 people living here, which was over our carrying capacity, actually. It just stressed systems in a number of ways. And so we've actually dropped down to about 11 people on the land at the current moment, but it does fluctuate. There's a limit in terms of ecologically, the carrying capacity of this ecology here for the amount of humans that can be on the land. But then there's also the limit just imposed by the county. And I think like if we were able to build, we could probably build beyond the limit of the county in an ecologically sustainable way, but it would be really difficult. I mean, 21 people on the land was probably doable, but then we were just kind of limited by like the kind of building we were able to do by the county. You can't build cob houses, and so then you're forced into doing a bunch of things that are, they're ecologically questionable. But also just I wanted to say, in terms of food production, the Rise Up Artisan Bread is its own for-profit entity, and it's not really a sustainable, long-term sustainable, ecologically beneficial model. I mean, it's based on white flour. So I just don't want to pretend like we have some kind of like business that's the salvation, that shouldn't be where we're really going. And I think like people need to understand that we're not holding ourselves up that way. We do hold ourselves up in terms of paying our employees as much as we possibly can, while keeping ourselves in the black. We do our best to be environmentally conscious. We use gray wire systems in composting, and we try to use compostable bags and not plastic whenever possible. We really try to minimize our resource consumption. And yet it's far from the perfect model, and yet it does provide a lot of people in this valley with sustenance. We're doing, with bread sustenance, we do a lot of sourdough, and we do a lot of whole wheat, and we provide like 3,000 loaves a week to this valley. So it's definitely a lot of food that is being produced in a value-added way. So that's one thing. And then the other element of food production that's happened on this land has varied over time. Like originally, Matt and Aria ran a organic vegetable row crop kind of production that was profitable for them, but maybe not sustainable in terms of energy. Most people are finding like the return is not financially enough for them to kind of sustain it in a farmer's market world through to the end of their life. Although some do find different ways to do that, and usually has to do with value-added products. But when Matt and Aria left, we had Ryan basically running a kitchen garden here and using the greenhouse for that, while Rosie and I continued to do the bakery, and we were not really involved with the food production very much outside of bread. Then we had another farmer come onto the land, and he was basically an apprentice farmer, and he learned a lot, and he was very self-motivated. And then he moved off, and we had another farmer come, that was Brock, and he lived here when you and Ashley lived here with your family. And he was trying permaculture pigs, he was trying permaculture chickens, in a production style. And it spun him out. I mean, it was too much for him to really do in a way that was sustainable for his energy. And then we had a little break from farmers on the land, and Brandon was doing some work in the kitchen garden. And so when Seth and Becca came following that period, which is recent history now, 2.5 years ago, they were doing some permaculture work and foraging from the wild, and they produce medicinals, and their business is called Nymph and Woodsman, and they produce great products that are tinctures and salves and of that ilk, that really lots of CBD products as well, different things that they're able to generate either from wild harvesting or like basically like a 1 acre production of often perennials. And their approach is way more in sync with the permaculture model, a sustainable like transition to something more sustainable as far as business models go. But they're still at the infancy of that of their business and trying to really, get it into a financially sustainable place. And that's, it's a real challenge. So as far as food production on the land goes, we still have the kitchen garden going, but there's nobody that's making money off of producing food here. We have somebody interested in running chickens, one of the residents, but I think that they will do that in the spring actually. And we're generally not super good about putting up a lot of food, although we've had years where we're great and we do a lot of that. So it really depends.
Yeah, because there's some nice orchards that have been in place for a while now, apples and pears and stuff. What other questions do you guys have? I'm sure you got some things that you want to ask Joe about.
You answered two of mine was animals, if there were animals on the property, and then also farmers market, if there was some sort of sustainable income with a market, and if so, if you guys did that. But you answered, that's kind of hit or miss, right? So
Yeah, well, Seth is really interested in bringing alpacas onto the land, and using them for a few different purposes. One for pasture, like grasses, maintenance, fuels reduction, basically, and pasture health, and also just lugging this, that, or the other thing up into the forest when we're doing forest work. So that's on deck for 2023. It's part of the plan, and there'll be a bit of a learning curve. I mean, in the past, we haven't only had the animals I mentioned, we also had sheep, and we've leased the land to cattle. We try to make sure they're not overgrazing it. And then as far as the farmers market goes, like Seth and Becca running Nymph and Woodsman, that's their private business, right? Their for-profit entity. They do take that to farmers markets, and they're able to actually go to a bunch of the smaller farmers markets, whereas Rise Up has been going to farmers markets since 2009 or something, and we're basically hitting like the three largest farmers markets in the area. A bunch of the smaller ones weren't even established when we started going, and we just decided we could basically handle those three, and that's where we go. So we're renting from the LLC, and other businesses, other farmers we draw up a contract, and they basically lease, the land based on whatever the contract says and pay a certain amount. And usually it's a paltry amount for a startup farmer. They're not paying a whole heck of a lot, but the LLC is getting a return on, maintenance of irrigation systems, maintenance of pasture, use of the land, maintaining of our irrigation rights or water rights, because it's a use it or lose it kind of system. So having a farmer on the land and using the pastures really benefits the LLC in that way, and maintaining our water rights. And the income based on rent plus business, personal, like resident rent plus business rent equals revenue at this point. We don't really have a whole lot else in terms of revenue, and that's why we don't have a ton of reserves. So if we had a few more businesses that were actually profitable, we could actually increase their rent as we did with Rise Up, and we would actually be able to have a higher revenue, or if we were more creative people. Well, we're creative enough, but if we had other creative ventures going that were generating profit, we could generate profit that way, but we haven't done that yet.
You got an amazing studio too, right? I mean, that's something you can maybe you can get into that just a little bit. For me, the community building is just, I haven't seen anything before like it. It's like a 2-story, timber framed, natural building that's got stained glass window in it. It's amazing. It's like a work of art. And then Joe's got this music zone that, you can get into that if you want, Joe, but it's like an amazing place to just go hibernate and jam out. And it's like got soundproof walls with sand and all this stuff. Ian's a really great musician too, so I'm sure you guys could chat more about that. The infrastructure is amazing. That's just something that I'll throw in there.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is a varied infrastructure that, and the land itself, there's a lot that of opportunity, I think that can be, that someone can avail themselves of if the right person with the right viewpoint comes here. I think it could be a great fit, for people who want to interact sustainably with the forest. And that's something that Seth and Becca do to a degree, but there's different possibilities there for sure. As far as the music and the larger community, and I mean, God, that community building that's where the bakery lives, and it's also a dining room and a commercial kitchen, and the upstairs has a library, and it's a timber framed with lodgepole pine. It's basically a straw bale octagon, 2 stories high, like you said. It's super beautiful, built by this amazing general contractor, John DeFruscia, who we met while he was living next door to us in Talent, and he just knew how to build a great building. And we also met fantastic community members in that process, all local carpenters and straw bale builders and plasterers. And so the community around us, I mean, because Rosie's better at building shit than I am, but way better, because I don't build anything really, like physically. But yeah, we've invited lots of great builders into the community, and we met so many great people that way. And so I've always been one for like not needing to be an expert at everything at all. Like, I like the idea of the Renaissance person 100%. And yet also, like, I'm very clear of what my limitations are, and I don't want to be overstretched. This is one thing I definitely wanted to mention, like my grounding principle ever since we started this whole project has been balance. And there are times when you're, with balance, you're always trying to find it. Sometimes we're often out of balance, right? But you can be close or you can be way off, right? So in the times that we're way off, we pay a price. And so the more often we're closer to that center point, like the more harmony I personally feel, maybe the more peace, the more grounded I feel. And so that guiding principle of balance is what leads me to not want to be overextended, not want to try to do everything, or have to be the expert at everything, or know all the answers to things, or I can say no. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But then that helps me be really clear about what my yeses are. Like, yes, I actually really, really strongly want to build or figure out a way to build a music room, like a studio. And that yes emerged, and it was so strong that like all the other members of the LLC were like, there's not a whole lot in it for us, but okay, we really want to support you because we understand how life-giving it can be, what a benefit it can be. And so it's my little man cave, but it's more than that, because it's a place where, like, we just threw a New Year's party. This New Year's party was so awesome, super rad, and it was in the Common Building. So we have a stage right outside the Common Building, and every year we host a battle of the bands, and community members from different farms put a little band together and get their amateur act up on the stage. And now it's got like a roof over it. We got like LED lights. It looks dope. And so the community shows up and they're like, oh my God, we're all rock stars for a night. And everybody gets to like express that part of themselves that wants to, and everybody wants to be the voyeur and watch is the great audience. And it's very bonding for the larger extended community here. And then we have this studio that I built with the help of people who actually can build. And it's provided a space for us to practice and to hone our skills as musicians, share, our love of music, and get together in different configurations. So this most recent one is a collective of people that I've known for forever and worked in the bakery with, and some of them I play with music with, and now we're also all playing as a unit, doing killer cover songs. And we just had, I don't know, 60 people here for this New Year's party and threw down like 12 cover songs and blew it up with fog and lasers and and then had the ultimate dance party till 2 a.m. And that I just also want to make a huge pitch for fun games, dancing and bonding in these ways that are, they're not valued by the larger society that we live in. They're undervalued tremendously. I was just reading a Pitchfork article today about this musician like Jeff Tweedy and this other musician, I'm forgetting her name right now. She quit. She basically is not touring because of the mental strain and stress of not being able to like make a living as a professional musician. Even professional musicians putting out amazing records, can't make ends meet because we live in a society that basically expects artists to give it all away for free. And that's the little niche that I've carved here is like I found a way to basically make a living, support the family, and actually invigorate this community with an income through the rent that Rise Up pays, which is and it's not me. And when I say I figured out a way, it's like Rosie and I figured out a way, and Rosie is the co-partner of Rise Up and my wife, and like a pillar of this community who is a star in her own right. It's if I died, Rise Up would probably still keep going. They'd get another baker in there, they'd be fine. If she dies, like I don't know what we're gonna do. I got to keep her healthy. But anyway, the point being, like the music that we're doing here, we're able to do because we found a way to like basically create with balance, right? We set up the bakery schedule so we bake 3 days a week, and in between we can breathe, we can do other things, we can take care of our families, we can take care of our relationships, we could take care of the LLC, and because we're not working like 40 hours a week. Well, I mean, sometimes we are. Sometimes in the beginning we were working 60 hours a week, but it's pared down, and we're bringing it back so that we're working like 30 hours a week and on average, and then we're able to do these other things that breathe life into the community. And then we have these explosive events that are like ecstatic, where we get together and we dance and we bond, and we get intoxicated. Like I would even make up, unless you need to be sober, which some people do, like then you get intoxicated in other ways. Maybe it's by dancing, or maybe it's by yoga, or maybe it's by whatever you do. But so it's just a big part of, I think, life here is finding ways to be ecstatic together, to get outside of the mundane, but then also we come back to the mundane. We're gonna like take care of the dishes, we're gonna do our laundry, and be into the zen of that as well, like honor the mundane as well. But there just has to be both. That's the balance.
Cool. It's a good lens to look through. What else do you guys have? Any other questions for Joe?
Yeah, what do you got? Any secrets for sourdough bread you can throw my way?
Hydration. Keep your so like a healthy like water, amount of water in your dough. Like a nice hydrated dough is a happy dough. Like water is life. True for bread too. And keep your starter healthy, like and happy. And that's usually like at least 3 times a week you feed it. I don't know, how often do you bake bread?
My wife does it all, but she wants to do sourdough here soon, so just trying to get some expert advice here before we jump in.
I recommend the Tartine book. I think
Okay.
that did a great job. Tartine 1, just
Mhm.
just talking about like the rudiments of sourdough and how to maintain it, and then I think it's remarkably tricky. Like I just went to Ireland, hence the hat. And it was like the trip of a lifetime. We got to spend 3 weeks there, and I met up with a friend from high school who lives there, who's lived there for 25 years, and she's super into bread and sourdough. I was surprised at like how challenging it is for kind of the lay baker to maybe get a grip on maintaining a healthy sourdough starter. So I would even recommend like going to a baking institute somewhere and taking like a sourdough like start class, take a class,
Cool.
because there's a lot of institutional knowledge. It's a tradition. It's been passed down, but like the most up-to-date knowledge, I mean, that's the thing, it keeps getting refined, and the knowledge keeps getting deeper, and the understanding keeps getting better. And so modern like practices are pretty fantastic, and any school would be very up to date on those. So the Tartine book, if you can't do a class, take a class if you can do a class. And then yeah, general rule, keep your starter vibrant, hydrate your doughs. And the third thing is, when you're making your dough, you want to give them a fold. So you got to note time, temperature, the amount of time of your fermentation at each stage you want to watch, and you're probably going to have a healthy fermentation if your temperature in the room is between, and dough is at 73 to 80 degrees. That's your general guideline. Keeping your dough in that temperature range is going to work really well for bread fermentation. And then you're going to want to bake it off in a steamy oven. You need steam. Steam is the unseen, invisible ingredient most people don't know about, but it makes a fantastic rise and a beautiful crumb.
Awesome.
And sometimes you could get that really easily by just taking your bowl that you're gonna, your bread, your dough, and after it's been shaped and it's risen, you put it in a preheated, what are those called? Pots. It's not a pot, it's a cast, like it could be a cast iron pot or the clay pots, with the lid. It's preheated to 450 or 475 degrees, and you put that little piece of dough in there and you put it back in the oven. And then after 25 minutes, you take the top off, then you let the top crust over, and that's that little oven, that Dutch oven, that's the word I was looking for. The Dutch oven creates a steamy environment with the lid on it. And so that provides that environment that most home bakers have a really hard time achieving.
Do you sell starts at the bakery?
No, but my dermatologist wanted me to bring him one. So when people ask, especially if they're my dermatologist, I'm just sure to show up with some.
Good for you. Anything gluten-free that you have? And is there other goodies or just bread that you have at the bakery?
We focus on the bread. We do have a gluten-free bread that people really, really love. It's based on a teff, the ancient grain of teff. And we do some pastries once a week for the farmers market, and pastries are actually a great way to make a profit, but we didn't want to push sugar, so we don't emphasize it, and we just do like a small amount of those.
Cool.
And their oven is an amazing feat in itself.
Yeah, Yopi, it's made out of, or it was I think they closed down, but it was a business that came out of Barcelona, Spain, LLOPIS. Juan Yopi basically designed this oven, which was an amalgamation of steel and brick and mortar, and it came over here in pieces from Barcelona, 33,000 pounds of material, and then they sent 2 guys over that built it up in 7 days, with us running around as their gophers, bringing them beer and coffee all day long. And we were like, don't you want some water? They said, water is for frogs. Okay, man, you guys are doing a great job. Whatever you want.
Yeah,
Amazing bread oven. It actually functions like a lazy Susan. It's 9 feet in diameter, and the hearth itself, and it's round. So on the outside, it's just basically like a steel cover that holds in all the insulation. So there's a ton of oven mass because the inside is all mortar and brick and basically this giant brick and mortar convection system that ensures that the hearth, that 9-foot hearth, round hearth, is evenly heated, and then it shoots it up the flue out the top, and we get to, with a giant like captain's wheel, we spin the hearth around, and it's incredibly ergonomic for baking bread, and it's just the perfect size for our kitchen and our operation. And it's what you call a white oven because the hearth it doesn't have a fire on the hearth. The hearth is clean and just open for bread, while underneath we have a giant firebox, and that's where we send all the wood in. So it's a wood fired oven, and all the heat is going through the firebox.
Wow. I'm hungry.
What else do we have for Joe? Anything else you guys want to dive into?
Where did you get your starter?
We made it. We just made it. We started, I think we did the grape leaf starter, but you don't even need grape leaves. There's a lot of different ways. They talk about starting in the Tartine book, but yeah, we just started one up and got it going. And we're just very careful not to ever throw it all into the bread. You always have to save it's like my precious.
Right. And just so you know, Joe, Kevin, living in the Bay Area, I'm sure you guys have stomped around similar places, because you got the Zen Center. I actually, part of what my permaculture background is up there in Occidental, as well as RDI and stuff. So that's like a perfect spot for that sort of sourdough experience, where you guys came out of there.
Yeah. Do you know any good, you're not in the Bay Area anymore though, right, Kevin? Did you have a bakery you liked when you were down there?
No, actually, I can't eat wheat.
I know.
There you go.
But I supported the Three Stone Hearth in Berkeley for a while, and back before I realized I couldn't eat wheat, I got like a sourdough culture from them and was a big fan of their work.
Nice. Yeah, I don't know them. I haven't heard about them yet.
Yeah, they're
So
like a Weston Price based,
yeah. Wow.
community supported kitchen, a CSK as they called it. I suppose they're still in business. We got a few things from them, a few years ago.
Sweet. Oh, that's super cool. Wow.
Well, best of luck to you, Joe, as you kind of unwind 2023. We're going to see what happens here, but keep up the great work. I feel like the bakery and the community building, those are big pieces of, I think you guys are discovering a lot, and it's something that can be shared. So even though it isn't necessarily, like you said, this utopian dream where we can do everything and, it's all contained in a dome, it's like we are, there's pieces to the puzzle that we all are contributing to. So I feel like that's really an important piece, is how do we actually work together? How do we live in community together? And, the bakery stuff is, to me, super exciting because it's, you guys are super successful. I don't know if, for me, I've gone a lot of different places, but I haven't seen people, really be able to provide so much. You guys are able to have, provide livings for a lot of people. You're able to really take care of your families well. And so hats off to you guys, and being able to stick through it. Cause I'm sure there's a lot of those moments where you say, okay, are we done? Are we going to keep going or what's going on? So I think, I think maybe for both things, the bakery's hard and community's hard. So I feel like those are commendable things that you guys are taking on.
It's true. You're
Yeah.
right. There have been those points all along the way, and yet it's really interesting how there are so many like rewards that I feel coming through, and a lot of that has to do with persistence. And like that's the thing about Rosie and I choosing to get married. If we weren't, I probably would have run away. But it was good to like make that commitment. And for me and her, I'm not saying everyone should get married, but I'm just saying like internally, psychologically, like it was a commitment, and like choosing this land and building the oven. I mean, that oven's not going anywhere, you know. It's here for until it just crumbles. And so we're locked in a lot of ways, and we're really committed, and I feel like that actually serves us in the hard times as well, to kind of bear down and do the hard work of figuring out where we're out of balance and what needs to be adjusted, because I think like that's usually what it comes down to, is something either internally or in the community is out of balance, and we can kind of look at and address, you know, where how, you know, the problem solving isn't around like, well, how do we get back into balance? And as a result of doing that for so long, like the relationships that I have with the people both on the land here, but also in the larger extended community of the Applegate Valley, are really powerful. I just remember an economist talking about talking to the specific question of like, well, what are we going to do when peak oil hits and the shit hits the fan? Like, how are we going to survive? What's the most important thing, they were asked? And it was a progressive economist. And they said, well, actually, the most important thing are your neighbors. Like, that's where you're going to actually determine, that's what's going to determine how much resilience you have, you know, in the midst of the crisis that whatever it looks like ensues. And it's not the only thing, but it was a shocking point that they made, because they're an economist, and whoever hears an economist say that, you know. So I've never forgotten it, and I see it happen in our community here. And you just, you know, to me, I just want to take care of our relationships with the land, but also our relationships with the extended community, which I think of as extended family, and make sure that, you know, we're really honoring and respecting each other, and continuing to build on the relationships by doing right by each other.
Awesome. Well said.
Yes.
Thank you for coming on,
Thank
Joe.
you.
And
Yeah, it was super nice to talk to you all. Thanks for giving me the opportunity just to talk a lot.
Hang out, yeah.
Appreciate you, Joe. And now it's time for What's Growing On. Kevin, what's growing on?
Well, not much. It's January here. It's winter. We haven't had too many frosts lately, but everything died from the previous frost. So I'm just got my plants in my greenhouse, is 2 greenhouses. And my black soldier flies are done. They did not, my breeding experiment did not work with them. I'm going to try something different. I have a bunch of the mature grubs that I can, you know, try it again. I'm going to maybe try to put it in the greenhouse. But otherwise, just getting ready for spring.
Sweet.
Lana?
I've had an eventful 2 weeks here on our little homestead. Had an appointment for my dog to put him down, one of our little 14-year-old dogs, and big kids talked me into giving him some more time. And so I gave him another day. And then he ended up dying at home here, kind of in my arms, super sad. Just watching the whole process of life and death, you know, kind of crazy. But all was well, buried him, did all that, you know, and then the next day, my was going out to put my chickens away and noticed that my chicken, one of them, she wouldn't come. And so I was like, what's going on with her? So I picked her up, looked at her, and her prolapse had vented, or her vent has prolapse, or what is it? Yeah.
Yep.
Had come out. And so I was like, holy cow. So I had to clean her up, did a whole bit of Epsom salt bath, blow dries, separated her, thinking, okay, maybe it'll just go back in after I pushed it in multiple times. I had gloves on. Ended up just having to, after 24 hours, stitching up her little rectum area with some stitches, cleaning it up, keeping the vent in. She's now back with her sisters. Everything's good. Daily baths, cleaning. A lot of work. I learned a lot of stuff on YouTube. a lot of stuff on Instagram. I think just having any kind of resource for this type of thing, is nice to have for me. And then kind of gotten through that. And then just like on Monday, my daughter, she decided that she didn't want the dog buried anymore. So she's like, can you call the vet, Mom, and see if we could dig him up and cremate him? So I dug up my dead dog and took it to the vet, and it's now being cremated. And so we'll get a plaque and, hair clippings if they're okay, and his ashes back, which actually I feel better. She's just worried about him being cold. This was her baby from, her puppy from when she was 3. So she's now 16. So that's been going on here. Everything seems to be calmed down though now, but it was an eventful New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, all kind of post-op Christmas stuff. What about you, Brandon?
Yeah, for me, I just kind of been in a holding pattern too, in some ways, but it's we've got the New Year's coming in, and we've just been busy building a casita. So we got a little, building projects. So I've kind of just been, not taking on too many new projects as far as growing stuff. But I did see that there's ants that it might be ants, but there's something chewing the avocado leaves, and I can't find. Normally, I can find a trail of ants or something. I can't find anything. So I think I'm going to put my headlamp on and head out there at night and see if I can find something. But they're being sneaky, or something is eating a bunch of leaves. So, and they're not leaving any trail or evidence. So this is part of the joys of pest management, I guess. But yeah, the casita is going well. It's on the side of our hill toward the river, and it's just a smaller cabin that is going to be kind of an A-frame. So it'll have kind of like the really steep pitched roof and kind of a metal type of concrete building. So really sturdy, and really can't wait to not be digging holes and making concrete. I'll say that. That's me. What about you, Ian?
Yeah, we got last minute Christmas present for my kids. We got 4 baby chicks, so now they're 16 days old. 2 silkies, 2 Rhode Island Reds. And I'm working on getting all that organized. Just moved them and my rabbits in my garage temporarily, and then just a couple more things to finish up with the chicken coop. Probably get them out, I don't know, end of February. But they're doing really, really well. They're growing fast. I realize how fast chickens grow, but they are already huge and being crazy. So that's it.
Ian, maybe do you want to close since you have your big fancy microphone?
What do you want me to close, Kevin?
Or you can sew up the prolapse vent.
Well, thanks everybody. That's the show for today. Remember, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and smash that notification button.
GYGO.
Hit the notification bell. Thumbs up. Subscribe.
Yeah.